What is up, crew? Welcome to my channel. If you have never been here before, if you have, welcome back. If you haven't, I should probably tell you who I am. My name is Shona Virtue. I'm a yoga teacher, personal trainer, ex-gymnast, ex-dancer. I'm a qualified massage therapist. I mean, I'm not going to list all my qualifications because, to be honest, I've been doing this for 15 years, so there's quite a few of them, but I've loved every second of this big journey in health and fitness. Anyway, you guys came here to talk about Pigeon Pose. Kapotasana in Sanskrit. So let's get straight into it. All right, how to get into it. So when you come into Pigeon Pose, probably the easiest way to get into it is to move from an all fours position. So from that all fours position, you're gonna extend the left leg back behind you, turn out your right toes and right leg, and then from there, push your hips back, just like I'm doing right here. And then from there, you wanna maintain a nice square hip. You can either stay upright in this position or start to come forward. For a more intermediate entry into this position, you would start from a downward facing dog, lift the right leg, and as you come forward into your high push-up position, you'd bring the right knee to the back of the right wrist and tuck that right foot into the side slightly towards the left-hand side of your mat. And if you can, even further forward, getting that right foot all the way up towards your left wrist. From there, you push your hips back and down and come into your pigeon variation, whether that's upright or folding forward. What are the benefits? So the benefits of Pigeon Pose include improved and increased hip mobility or hip flexibility as well. It stretches the glutes, the inner thighs, the hip flexors, and even for some of you, the quads as well. So that back leg is experiencing a quad and hip flexor stretch, and the front leg is experiencing an inner thigh, glutes, and hamstring stretch. Okay, not a lot of people know this, but it can actually improve your core and hip stability or pelvic stability. And this is because when we come into Pigeon Pose, if we make it active and we lift our hands off the floor and we try to hold it, we're having to activate a lot of those muscles at their end range, their stretched range. So this can be incredibly beneficial for helping to cultivate more stability through your hips and through your trunk or your core. Last but not least, one of my favorite benefits of this pose is that it can also help to reduce back pain. Now, back pain is kind of more like an umbrella term, and it can have many different little causes, but sometimes by releasing tension in the hips and tightness and immobility around the hips, we can take pressure off the lower back. One thing I will say though is that strength is really, really important in preventing and even fixing lower back pain. So we want to think about a two-pronged approach. We want to think about improving flexibility and mobility for back pain, as well as also ensuring that we are keeping things strong. Alrighty, contraindications and things to look out for in Pigeon Pose. Now there actually are quite a few because this one can be a little bit funky on the knees. You may find that when you come into this position first, if you have super duper tight hips, when you move into it, the hips will go, we can't do this. So your body's gonna go, all right, well, should we just put all that pressure into the knee joint then? Because those knee joint ligaments are nowhere near as strong as the hip joint ligaments. So we essentially find that when we come into that externally rotated position, the knee will start to feel compressed and kind of funky, particularly if you already have existing knee issues. So the way to combat this is to come out of the pose slightly, and you can use a block for this to just raise your hips so there's less of a bend in the knee, less flexion through the knee. Otherwise, another option is to move into the 90-90 stretch. And I do have another video explaining how to execute the 90-90 pose, but it's a great one for those of you that experience knee pain in pigeon or who have tight hips. Okay, another contraindication is ankle or foot pain. So when you come into the pigeon position and you have that folded or plantar flexed foot, it's pointed. Some of you who may have previous injuries in your foot or your ankle can find this to be a really particularly uncomfortable position. And those of you that have really tight feet as well, also find that that kind of level of plantar flexion is just too intense. Your foot might go numb, or it actually exacerbates things. So for those of you that are in that sort of position or find yourselves in that category, again, I'm gonna say, try and raise the hips and raise it on some blocks, and then take your foot further forward so that your shin is parallel to the top of the mat. This is going to be very, very helpful when it comes to ensuring that you don't place so much pressure on the foot. All right, and last but not least, how do we get better at it? Okay, so improving flexibility in this particular position requires that you do your passive holds, you can do a little bit of PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, and you can do your pails and rails, which are sort of a form of PNF stretching, okay, or contract and relax. In order to do that, you do, let's say, a minute or 2 minutes of a passive hold in pigeon, like I'm doing right here. And then you'd start to move into intensifying the stretch by contracting the muscles. So we're doing what's called a progressive angular isometric loading sort of stretch here, PAILS. That's what PAILS stands for. And so what I'm gonna do is drive my knee into the floor, drive my foot into the floor, and at the same time, feel as though, imagine someone's pushing onto my back, and so I want to push back against it. So I'm sort of like driving everything into the floor at the same time. I'm almost tensing everything in my back. So I'm really contracting all the muscles that are on the outside of my body, right? My posterior chain. Specifically, really intensely, I'm really trying to contract my glute muscles on that side that's stretching. Now, then I would take 10 seconds of that. After that, I would then place my hands on the floor and try to lift my right knee and my right foot and bring it towards my face, because now what I'm going to start to do is try to regress that angle. So I'm trying to contract everything that would actually close that angle, right? So make the angle deeper, okay? So I'm gonna actually try to bring the knee in towards my chest more and lift off. So now I'm contracting all the muscles that weren't actually being stretched, right? They're the ones that help you pull yourself into a deeper position. And I'll hold that for 10 seconds. It's really, really hard. And then after that, I'm then gonna fold forward into the stretch. Now, if that was super confusing, don't worry, because I have a whole bunch of sequences where I do this technique of a passive hold followed by some pails and rails and some PNF work. So make sure you head over to my hip mobility sequences where you'll find Pigeon Pose and this particular way of improving your flexibility in Pigeon Pose as well. I'll link them below and maybe even pop them somewhere on the screen. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I certainly enjoyed talking about Pigeon Pose because it's one of my favorite poses in the whole of the yoga family. If you guys have any requests for postures you want me to work through or things about postures, make sure you let me know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe because I release videos like this and more, always educational, hopefully entertaining. I'm not sure if I'm that entertaining, but I'm hopefully educational every single week. So join the Virtue Crew family. And if you want to really well and truly improve your yoga practice, make sure you hit the link below. I have a yoga program. I'm excited for you guys to give it a go.